Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're unpacking a really fascinating and honestly deeply urgent paradox. Think about it. We've literally never had more ways to talk, text, video chat, and just share every single mundane detail of our lives with the whole world. And yet, we are experiencing an absolutely unprecedented crisis of isolation. It's wild. So let's just dive right into what the data is actually telling us about how we live, work, and connect today. So why exactly does the most connected society in human history feel so, well, incredibly empty? We so often treat loneliness like it's just this personal failure, right? Like a sign that we just aren't trying hard enough to make friends. But the research shows something entirely different. Modern isolation isn't your fault. It's actually the result of massive, kind of invisible structural shifts in our biology, our workplaces, our digital habits, and even the literal physical layout of our cities. It's a systemic issue, not just a personal one. To really get a grip on this, we're going to systematically peel back the layers of this societal wound today. We'll be moving through 6 key areas: the silent epidemic, the biology of isolation, the remote work paradox, the digital substitution, the loss of third places, and finally, rebuilding human connection. All right, let's jump straight into section 1, the silent epidemic. We're going to look at the hidden physical costs of modern life. The sheer scale of this crisis is honestly staggering. To put it in perspective, the U.S. Surgeon General has officially recognized loneliness as a public health epidemic. They actually equate the physical danger to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. I mean, wow. And the data completely backs this up. We are looking at severe, highly measurable physical health risks directly caused by chronic social disconnection. Living in isolation increases your risk for premature mortality by 29%. It bumps up the risk of heart disease by 29% and stroke by 32%. And get this, for older adults, chronic loneliness can increase the risk of developing dementia by a massive 50%. So feeling disconnected isn't just making us sad, it is quite literally making us sick. Moving right along to section 2, the biology of isolation and how the brain actually reacts to disconnection. Okay, so our human brains evolved in tribes, right? Meaning we are hardwired to view isolation as an immediate survival threat, literally just like a predator or starvation. When you're chronically lonely, your brain essentially panics. First, it registers a threat. Second, this triggers dysregulation in your HPA axis. That's basically your body's main stress alarm system, and it just floods your system with the stress hormone cortisol, causing systemic inflammation. Third, your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, goes into overdrive. It becomes totally hyperreactive. You actually start interpreting completely neutral social signals as hostile or rejecting. And that leads to the fourth step, which is a self-protective social withdrawal. It's this vicious cycle. Ironically, being lonely triggers a biological stress response that makes future socialization feel exhausting and even dangerous. You deeply crave connection, but your brain completely tricks you into avoiding it. Now let's shift gears to section 3, the remote work paradox. We're talking higher engagement, but lower well-being. So, the way we work has fundamentally changed over the last few years, and it's revealed a really deep tension in some recent Gallup data. Fully remote workers actually have the absolute highest levels of professional engagement globally, sitting right at 31%. They've got autonomy, flexibility, control over their time, the whole setup. But there's a huge catch. Only 36% of them report actually thriving in their overall lives. They report significantly lower life thriving and way higher levels of daily stress, anger, sadness, and loneliness compared to hybrid or on-site workers. Turns out, physical distance really does create mental distance. It removes that casual, everyday camaraderie that naturally buffers our stress. And the real tipping point here is represented by a very specific number, 1.16. A massive study of over 33 million workers showed that working remotely 3 to 4 days a week actually increases your odds of experiencing loneliness by 16% compared to totally on-site workers. But interestingly enough, working remotely just 1 or 2 days a week didn't show this spike at all. A day or two pretending to work in your sweatpants? Totally fine. Moderate flexibility preserves our social balance. But high-frequency remote work, that acts as a massive catalyst for social disconnection. All right, let's head into section 4, the digital substitution. This is all about algorithms and the illusion of connection. As we lose physical spaces, we naturally attempt to fill that void through our screens. Sociologists call this the displacement hypothesis. It's basically the idea that the time we spend in virtual environments directly replaces our real face-to-face interactions, which ultimately leads to emotional detachment. And a massive 9-year study from Baylor University definitively proved this. But here is the real kicker. It wasn't just passive doom scrolling that made people lonely. Nope. Even active use, like posting, messaging, and commenting, leads to increased loneliness over time. Why? Well, because typing just isn't the same as physical presence. The digital world is actively displacing the real-world interactions that our biology absolutely requires. Which brings us to a frankly rather concerning digital trend called sad fishing. If you haven't heard of it, it's the practice of sharing emotional pain online specifically to seek sympathy. It essentially frames personal suffering as a product for digital consumption. This is a huge phenomenon right now, especially among teenagers on platforms like TikTok. Vulnerable users post these highly stylized, performative videos of their emotional distress. But therapists are waving major red flags here, warning that this completely gamifies vulnerability. It actually distances the creators from their own genuine feelings and stops them from getting real, tangible support from actual human beings in their offline lives. So why exactly do these screens fail us so badly? It's because real-world connection provides deep emotional support that physically regulates our nervous system and lowers our cortisol. The digital-like economy, on the other hand, that completely relies on high-arousal algorithmic loops just to capture our attention. Constant, rapid scrolling actively suppresses the brain's default mode network, which is the specific area responsible for self-reflection and empathy. The algorithm literally cannot replicate human intimacy. All it does is hijack our attention while actively blunting our empathy, leaving us feeling completely emotionally numb. Let's move to Section 5, the loss of third places. This is what we call the geography of isolation. Sociologist Ray Oldenburg popularized this brilliant concept called the third place. Basically, if your home is your first place and your work is your second, your third places are those informal, shared gathering spots. Think cafes, parks, public libraries, barbershops, places where everybody knows your name or, at least your coffee order, leaving your local barista as basically your only friend. But seriously, these spaces are the crucibles of friendship. They literally require us to leave the house, bump into neighbors, and practice low-stakes social interactions. They are the training grounds for community. But sadly, thanks to car-centric urban sprawl, they are rapidly disappearing. The spatial divide in how we live today is incredibly stark. On one hand, you have amenity-rich neighborhoods. These are dense, walkable communities where you just naturally run into people. But on the flip side, millions of people are living in what are called civic deserts. This is car-centric sprawl that totally separates homes from commercial hubs. In fact, get this, 21% of Americans live in communities with absolutely zero gathering places. None. Social wealth is increasingly becoming a real privilege as lower income and less educated folks are disproportionately trapped in these civic deserts, where it is physically incredibly difficult to just go make a friend. And the research here gives us a really staggering reality check. Let me just quote this directly. Americans living in communities with zero access to civic infrastructure are more than 3 times as likely to have no close friends. That is just wild to think about. It really underscores how the physical landscape of our cities and towns directly dictates our capacity to form meaningful relationships. It's simple, really. If you don't have a physical place to go, you simply don't have a place to connect. All right, bringing it home with Section 6, Rebuilding Human Connection, the antidote to the epidemic. So, what are the actionable solutions here? Because we absolutely have to fix this. First up, we have a super innovative clinical approach called social prescribing. Because loneliness is a literal, physical medical issue, doctors are finally starting to treat it like one. Healthcare providers are now formally referring isolated patients to non-medical community activities. We're talking local volunteering, arts programs, or group fitness classes. It totally helps patients transition from passive medical treatment to active community involvement, which lowers depression symptoms and actually reduces overall healthcare costs. It's a total game changer. And on a broader civic level, city planners must intentionally design sociability right back into our neighborhoods using four main pillars: location, invitation, activation, and inclusion. Basically, this means placing shared spaces right along natural pedestrian pathways, so people just naturally bump into each other. It means using architecture to genuinely invite people to linger rather than just hurrying through. It means activating those spaces with actual events, and of course, ensuring they're totally inclusive and accessible to everyone. We literally have to physically build belonging back into the blueprints of our towns. Finally, I want to leave you with a direct challenge for your own daily habits. Will you choose to connect in person today? Honestly, ask yourself, will you leave your house and be with other people, in person, on purpose, in the place where you live? Overcoming this massive epidemic isn't just about waiting around for city planners or doctors to fix things. It starts with each of us making the stubborn and, yeah, sometimes inconvenient choice to actually show up in the real world. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Now go put the phone down, say hello to a neighbor, and I'll see you next time.